Welcome to the Modern Pet Retailer, where we bring pet retailers together to talk about solutions and problems in our business and work together as a team instead of working alone. Today, we're talking about employee retention. Last week, we were discussing hiring, the hiring process, training process. And this week, we're talking about how we keep these people in here. We've spent the money to find them, train them. Now we just got to keep them to really maximize our ROI on our employees. So I was reading something the other day about company culture being 10 times more of a predictor of employees staying than wages were and being competitive on wages. I feel like I see you drive by Target and it's $16 an hour minimum wage. You start there. You just feel like you have to compete with these top people. And I think what's one of our benefits as being small businesses is the company culture and how much we can control inside our doors without having to compete with Target, Walmart for those wages specifically that just kill the small business. So MIT did a study where they found the number one reason employees quit was mainly from toxic or negative work environment. And unfortunately, since we are usually family small businesses, you have family drama that brings into your business. So it's very important to stay on top of that to make sure that and toxicity that might be within your family doesn't always come and translate into your business. So today we're going to talk about how to build your store's retention strengths, improve on those, how to build low to no cost retention programs, and just maintaining a culture around retention and how to invest in your employees so they stay. And if you need to do exit interviews, how to properly do those so that you can improve your store for the next employee. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how basically you can't outpay a bad culture. The good news is your employees are choosing you. They've applied for you, they've trained with you because they want a more personal experience with employment. They don't want to work for some place that thinks they're just another number. They want to be somewhere that actually knows their name, actually cares about their family, what they might be having going on personally, and can give them that flexibility. So they're choosing you for a reason. So there's no point in trying to incentivize in a counterproductive way if they're choosing you for a completely different reason other than pay. Yes, pay is important and you have to stay somewhat competitive, but they're not choosing you first for that. So, Dave, what do you think are some of the strongest retention features you have in your business that you've had today?
I think one of the things you touched on was culture. And I like the idea that you can't outpay a bad culture. Truth is, in brick and mortar retail, we're never going to be the highest paid, and large corporations can almost always outpay us if you don't care about culture. So, all things being equal, we're rarely going to be the highest pay. So, I like that setup. And I do think that we've been able to maybe define it more recently, but even historically, culture has been part of our business. My grandfather started the business. I didn't know him. Apparently, a little bit of a gruff guy, but it was just my dad and a few other people that worked with them. When my dad was here, he was a very amicable individual, very outgoing, very community oriented, and he would talk to anybody for any length of time. And I think that made people really engenders this camaraderie where you can trust him. You know, you can go to him for any problems or questions, whether personal or business. Customers could come to him with any pet related question and he would talk to them for half an hour. And this sort of becomes part of our modern culture, but it's just been built in over time. And I think that when you build that into your business, when you are easygoing, when you're human first oriented, look, every business has to be profitable. We're all here to make money, have a lifestyle, and build a sustainable business, which is really just about having that cash flow and that profitability over time. But if we focus only on the money, our culture can become dead. And that's exactly to your point, Tiff, where people will just leave. If they want a dead culture, they'll go to Target and get paid a couple dollars more an hour, and it won't be a big deal. So we have to protect the culture, I think, cultivate it and then protect it. And that's really a few points on what you talked about with family and family drama. Be careful of nepotism. Make sure that anybody that is a favored hire, so a family or a family friend, that they go through the same processes and have the same expectations as your current employees. You will turn off your best employees very quickly if they feel like they're being overridden by someone who didn't quote unquote earn it. So it's almost as if you have to ensure that your favored hires actually have higher requirements, right? That they have to do more, that they have to do the training, they have to use the processes. This is super critical because if someone feels like there is actual favoritism, they're going to check out. But this also goes like culture from employee to employee drama. And we had talked about in the past, no, I keep thinking of it as rumor. What is it? No gossip, right?
No gossip. Yeah.
Gossip can kill a culture. And that's something that you want to protect, again, your best employees and the culture, and be very wary of employee cliques, where a group of two or three employees isolate or outcast one employee. And that can feel very awkward. And it's just not healthy because that clique is actually running your business. You're not running it anymore. So those are the things I think that have to do with, really, they all revolve around culture. But I think that's the selling point, is be easy, be comfortable, have a great culture. People want to enjoy coming to work here. That is wonderful for your customers, because if your employees are happy, your customers are more likely to be happy. So I really think that's the absolute strongest. And behind that, I think we have a good employee discount. So we do a cost plus 15, which is the cost of any product that comes through our door at wholesale. We will forward that to the customer, to the employee rather, with just a 15% add-on, which is cost of handling and storage and everything, really. And you mentioned before, Tiff, is like, if the employees are using the products, they're going to be better salespeople for those products. So this is useful both for them, because it's a benefit that is different than dollars, but still very valuable. And it's great for their understanding of the product. So it's really wonderful. And the last thing I think is flexible scheduling. So we know we're never going to be the highest paid out there. But again, understanding the humanity of our employees and that they have needs, whether it's around family or vacation, or just they want special days off because they do. Is it really a big deal as long as we have enough staff to cover? So I would lean towards flexibility also as a big selling and retention point. So those things basically, but predominantly culture, good side benefits like the discounts and flexibility. Those definitely are the top three, I would say.
Yeah, I like your point about nepotism, just especially since I am one of the children in this business. And then you also have your youngest son who comes back for college. And I told him, and I showed him a clip the other day of Dave Ramsey talking about, if you are a child or a family member, or like you said, friend in a small business, you already come in with a chip on your shoulder of people will expect you got that position because you are related or friends or something like that. So you have to overcome that, because that's a bias that people are already going to have about you. So you have to work 10 times harder than anybody else in the building just to prove that you're at the same level with everybody.
And you can tell when you're accepted. It's like the idea that respect is never given, it's earned. So if you use respect as an analog to how do the other employees accept this family member, is do they respect that person? So maybe they've been given the position because they're a family member over a different hire, but are they respected by the coworkers? And if they're not respected by the coworkers, you can tell there's something there, that they're just not carrying their weight. They're not doing the processes that as expected. They're doing something that is not what you built inside the company. And that, I think, will tell you where the family member or friend that was hired falls in the whole culture of, are they in or are they out? And if they seem to be out, you better check that and make sure it doesn't stay around for long.
Another retention thing that I think gets missed, and I get it, the feedback from our employees quite often, is not having stressful policies when it comes to either the customer service facing policies or anything like that. Because we've acquired a couple of employees from other pet stores that were either corporate franchise, bigger box store type things. And they had either you had to hit quotas or you had to hit specific item sales per day. And those policies didn't build the environment they were looking for in a business, because they were going to work with people and their pets or whatever the reason they were approaching that business. And I think those things created a culture of competitive that was more in the favor of business, like you said, but not so much in the favor of the people working there. So I think the fact that Praxis doesn't have policies in place that say you have to hit this amount of sales per day helps our ideal employee feel calm, a lot more connected. And then also product mix, the things we choose to bring into our stores, our employees are aligned with. We tend to be a little bit more on the holistic, a little bit natural side of things, and our employees gravitate to those types of products themselves as consumers. So if I brought in something that was against that grain, they're usually like, it doesn't make sense. I can't jive with this. I feel uncomfortable selling this, those types of things. So I think our product mix is a good retention program in itself just because they can align with it. They feel comfortable selling it.
Yeah, and just a note on easy policies. I've always been in the belief that it's a relationship business where my job is to make it easy on the employees, right? So whatever bottlenecks are in the way, whatever hurdles are in the way for myself, try to stay out of the way, make sure things are just easy, right? Make sure all the steps that they have to do, including handling customers, is easy. And you make a really good point about, could we make a few more dollars or another profit margin point or two just by, hey, would you like fries with that? That's fine. It's proven that it works. And if they're really relevant sales, but the problem is that it's very difficult to teach people to do that both consistently, especially if they're uncomfortable, to your point, Tiff, and properly. Properly, is it really a relevant suggestion? So I think by removing all of those hurdles, which have some benefit to the business from a dollars or profit margin perspective, the question becomes, are the employees serving the sales or are they serving the customer? And I think by changing the focus to serve the customer, make the best selections for the customer, you build that trust, and that trust makes a repeat customer, which is a way better customer. You want somebody who's going to stick with you for the dog's lifetime, the cat's lifetime. You want someone who trusts you so that they're going to listen to the recommendations you're making, not thinking, oh, are they just trying to sell this product to me? So I think not only is it good for the employees because it's a low stress way to do that, but it's really great for the customer relationship so that you build long-term healthy relationships with your customers. Another one that kind of falls into that, Tiff, is our super easy return policy, right? Basically, it's very rare that we would turn away a return. And this is for the same reason. One of the things I would hate seeing in my own experience at other stores, or if an employee challenges a customer on a return and then ends up giving them the money back, you basically already violated the relationship. If you think you're going to end up giving the money back anyway, why don't you make it a really good experience and make it a wow experience, and again build that trust. So I like that you brought that up, having high standards, but low, maybe threshold, right? Low pressure. We're not here to force customers into anything. We're not here to measure our numbers and make sure we hit these goals, at least not on the front employee side. So, absolutely, like you said, the employees that have experiences in other places that had goals, it was all about the numbers. And I question whether that really built a better business for them. And the employees were super uncomfortable doing it anyway. So, yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, I think we just have to lean in as a small business on what our actual strengths are. And that's we can build these genuine relationships. We can have flexibility and purpose. And just knowing your team's name and their personal issues goes a long way, especially if our employee avatar is that person that cares about having that kind of relationship with their employer. They're looking for that kind of deeper purpose, I think. Like the dangerous mistake is basically keep raising your wages, assuming that retention's going to fix itself and people are just going to stay. But if it's a bad company culture, or you have arguments with your spouse or your father-in-law or your sister, brother, whatever, whoever you have this business with, if you're having arguments with them on a regular basis, or they feel like they can't approach you because you're unapproachable, like that will just, you could pay them $50 an hour. They probably still will not stay if they feel like they can't come to you with an issue or something like that. Another thing is if you are running this business with somebody else, a family member or anything, play to your strengths too. Don't put your business oriented guy, your numbers guy in front of an employee and try to have them socialize with the employee if you have somebody that has that strength. Dave can handle employees if he wanted to. He definitely likes to be behind the scenes and fixing things and doing things and not necessarily the interpersonal side of it, which is something I personally love. So it'd be counterproductive to have him handle employee situations and me doing whatever it is Dave does on a regular basis. The behind the
Yeah,
scenes fixing things. You don't want me fixing anything, so.
yeah. And you don't want me, yeah, like you said, I can manage employees. I actually enjoy the relationships that are cultivated and the friendly banter that we have, but I can't do it. It's an energy suck. So if I were to have to do it all the time, I would become very bad at it very quickly.
Yeah.
It just would. And then I would not bring my best self to the engagement, and it would just, it's like a downward spiral. Yeah. Put me in a room with a spreadsheet and I'll be happy, and you handle the employees. So that's a really good point, is it's not so much pick your battles, but know yourself and try to put people around yourself that can do those jobs better. Absolutely. That's a good idea.
So we talked about those are like soft skills, soft offerings you have in your business. Let's talk about some low or big kind of no cost, like physical benefits you can provide to your employees. You had mentioned already employee discounts and just structuring that whatever fits your business best. Dave kind of went into detail about what works best for us. But if your margins are tight and you can't offer, even offering something or a little bit, like you said, to get employees trying things or get some kind of a benefit that you're still having some income coming in or you're at least paying for the product and you can benefit them. Another one that we have within Braxton's is employee feed programs. So these are going to be manufactured sponsored. So they usually don't cost you anything other than the relationship. You have to balance the relationship you have with these manufacturers. You can't just keep asking them for more and more. So if you have employee feeding programs, you have to reciprocate sales and help with that. But that's a I think we last I checked last year, we probably got about $5,000 worth of free food for our employees over the entire year from a few different manufacturers. And what they seen was an increase in sales of at least 5% across their brands. And our employees learned how to talk to customers about the brands and felt more comfortable talking about them because they had used them on a regular basis. So that's something that didn't cost us anything other than navigating the relationship with the manufacturers, which is definitely something you have to consider, but the benefit to the employees was huge because we have 2 employees that have 5 or 6 dogs each, like, they just need that kind of help, so it's just nice to help get that into their pockets. We mentioned the flexible scheduling. To me, this kinda goes back and forth between the soft or the hard kind of offerings you can have, but structuring your scheduling as best you can, because some people only have 1 or 2 employees. I know that's difficult when you say flexible, but if you know who your avatar is and your employee avatar, if it's that parent re-entering the workforce and they need to be off by 3 or 4 o'clock, if you can't accommodate that kind of thing, don't target that type of person. But if you can, that could be a huge benefit to your business because usually they're skilled people. They just don't necessarily want a full-time job. The retiree might be looking for something only a few days a week, or like a gap year student just needs you to play around a flexible schedule of either another job or maybe like some part-time school or something like that. But just knowing what your employee avatar is and what kind of flexibility you can offer within your business yourself. Another one I actually learned this at a trade show. Another store owner, she was talking to me. She owned her own yoga studio before she owned her own pet store, and I guess she made the transition. But when she started her pet store, she offered free yoga class for her employees twice a week. And I think she said at the time she had 80% of her 15 employees show up twice a week and just bond and do yoga together. And it's something that she's probably doing anyways. She's probably going to keep practicing if she really likes it. So she's really not, other than her time. But I think that was probably a good team bonding. But I think you can get creative if you are in any kind of groups like entrepreneurial groups or small business groups, and you can meet other business owners and start bonding with them and seeing where you could probably mutually benefit and offer programs. Currently, Braxton's is right next to a boarding facility. So we offer their employees a shared discount, which they reciprocated with our employees. It's mutually beneficial and again, relatively low cost if you structure it correctly. You don't want to give them like a similar employee discount to what you've set up for your internal employees, but something a little bit helps, something they wouldn't expect. Also
Thank you.
helping that employee's retention as well.
Yeah, and if I can kind of bump in on that, there's a couple different points to make. One, you can put a limit, right? If you're doing the discount, maybe there's a limit per month that they're allowed. You don't want to have it complicated. It should be as easy as possible. So for your own employees, if you need to do a limit, certain number of bags, maybe it's people in the household, maybe it's only that one person. There's a variety of things that you can do to, if you're concerned about abuse or overuse. So you can limit the cost of the program by putting a limit on it. And really good point about internally building culture, this external that you just mentioned with our neighbor next door, you want to think about partnerships not necessarily from an owner to owner perspective, but a front staff because you want the people that are connected to the customers, right? So we have a great relationship with the owner of the business, but if it's like, hey, let's go out to dinner, that doesn't really help his employees know who Braxton's is. We're not really benefiting the employees. So really thinking about from whether it's your employee, what is it they want? What is it they need? What is it that is really going to be helpful to them? And then with this shared discount idea, we're supporting another store's employees. And obviously we're putting our face and name in front of them. They're coming into our store, they're getting to know our staff. So it's an easy recommendation when they run into one of their customers that has a question. It's just, oh, just go next door to Braxton's. They've got whatever you need. I shop there myself. So yeah, think about it. We're talking about retention, but from a marketing perspective, very similar, very easy to do, generally low cost, but you're giving that employee something that they're really interested in, something that's useful to them, not something you just made up that, oh, here's a Starbucks gift card. Maybe they like coffee, maybe they don't, right? But if you can engage them at that level with something that's useful to them, it can have a lot of benefits from culture to customer recommendation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the most creative retention perks don't necessarily come from an HR playbook. They come from knowing people inside your business and inside your community. And it's just an advantage that corporate really doesn't have time to learn those types of things. They don't have time to make those relationships. So I think I want to circle back to building a functional and non-toxic environment because I think it's probably definitely MIT suggests it's the most important thing to fix and have functional in your small business. And I think it's very difficult when we work with our interpersonal relationships and family to make sure that you get right. Because, like I said, if you're building this business with your spouse, or you're building this business with your brother or sister, daughter in law, whatever the case is, that you're going to have disagreements because you're family, you're going to have those things. But it's important to have those disagreements in the right way, not undermining each other in front of employees, all these different nuanced things that I don't know if people are cognizant about and make sure that they do properly.
Whether it's family or ownership or management structure, defining a clear chain of command and positional authority, and then sticking to it. Tiff, in the case of us, and you're the employee manager, and I will never correct an employee unless it's absolutely necessary. Feed you the information, give you the details. It's your job then to address them. My point in doing this, unless it's something that is a safety issue or a direct event with a customer that I see myself and I believe needs correcting right there, I will never touch it because I believe that violates the chain of command and the understanding from the employee's perspective who they should go to, who they have to talk to, who will take care of this problem. And to your point, if you have family members or maybe a confused structure so that employees don't really know, am I going to John? Am I going to Dave? Do I talk to Tiff? Who am I supposed to talk to about this problem? They might just not tell you, and it could be important information. And another great point is if there's a clear delineation of job structure, then you also know who has the authority over that type of decision. So is it a financial decision? Oh, this person. Is it technology and structure? Oh, it's this person. Is it buying and inventory? Oh, it's this person. So that reduces confusion both from a structural organizational point in your business, but from a customer and employee position rather, it creates confidence and lack of confusion. So it's you make a good point there and look at it more broadly, building an organizational structure that makes sense and that should reduce arguments in the first place, but certainly from the employee perspective, it gives them clarity of who should be addressing them, who they should address if they have an issue.
Yeah, so outside of family concerns, there are a few things that can help you build a non-toxic environment. And I think being consistent and fair across your expectations and having SOPs in place that evaluate employees fairly and not inconsistently. The nice thing about building those relationships is you start to get to know somebody, you build that friendship. And if I have an employee that I hang out with on the weekends or something like that, it can bleed into how I treat them at work. So it's definitely important to not have any kind of favoritism when it comes to employees, being consistent and fair, having a grading scale if you do evaluations so that employee A can't assume that employee B is getting special treatment because they are my friend or we have a deeper relationship, maybe not even just a friendship, where they've been there longer, that the rules are fair and consistent across the board. Very important when you have those relationships. The next thing is problems go up and not sideways. We kind of just mentioned that we have a no gossip policy, and a lot of people think gossip is that cattiness of dating or that person's trash or something like that. But it's as simple as I don't like the way employee A does the trash. It's stupid or it's not the right way. And just complaining about somebody in parallel and they can't help you fix it. That kind of just it circulates. It doesn't help the employee get better, doesn't help the employee that's complaining about it get better about solving the problem because they're not talking to the right person to fix it. So again, that's how you rule out those cliques. You can get rid of that really quickly, but encouraging and telling your people if you're talking about another employee in a non-positive way, it needs to go up to somebody else. And especially not in a negative cattiness way. Got to get rid of that stuff. And I think Dave mentioned earlier, no favorites, no clicks, no gossip, just having a zero tolerance of all of that. We have a core group of people that are friends outside of work, and I love that. And when I tell them when they come back to work, they have to literally treat somebody that doesn't hang out with them outside of work the same way they treat somebody in that group. Can't discriminate against anybody because they're not in that group. Being approachable as a leader, employees have to feel safe to bring you that information. They have to feel safe bringing you other problems without fear of punishment or dismissal or overreaction. Being level-headed, and also the owner's or manager's energy is huge. You don't want to be reactive. You don't want to be stressful. You don't want to be inconsistent, because I feel as humans, we just feel that really immediately. So just making sure that you keep yourself in check and that you can be the best leader you can be and not reactive to problems. And I also believe a huge thing is following through when they do ask for something that is reasonable. I know as an employee myself, when I like, hey, can we get this done? And they say sure, and it's a couple years down the line, it kind of weighs on me a little bit. It just debilitates the team.
Yeah, or being clear up front if it's not a priority, I think is also useful because employees might come with a lot of ideas that ultimately are just not going to be part of the priority. So, yeah, just you're right. If you're going to focus on it, or if it's super important to the business to get that done, get it done. Or if it's not, say, look, we've got other priorities that we have to focus on first. We can talk about it more in 3 months or whatever, at least so they understand that you're listening to them, you hear the issue, but you're also setting a priority from the total business perspective versus what they were specifically looking at.
Definitely. Keeping an open feedback loop also, since we have feedback loops with our training programs and how we bring people in, we want to keep an open feedback loop of new policies we might be implementing or anything like that. So we have a note system. So if an employee sees something that like, hey, I noticed this didn't work when we tried this new function, they can basically get us that information pretty quickly. And they feel comfortable doing that because we're going to fix it as it again, based on that priority level, we're going to fix it as quickly as we can. So keeping an open feedback loop that's easy for employees to do. Sometimes it's intimidating for an employee to physically come to your office and say, "Hey, this is not working. I don't know why it's not working." If they can quickly just send you a message via email or notes, however system you have set up, one, it's hard coded, so you know that they've actually mentioned it in the past already, but then you can have it fixed in a quicker pace and not have that barrier of kind of social interaction that might be there if they don't want to bring something concerning up to you.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the
Yes.
two for there is lowering the threshold. Now, I would say you don't want it to be so low that people can comment anonymously for two reasons. One, I don't think that's valuable in a small business. It might make it easier on them, but the problem is problems in general, issues that come up are rarely well defined on the first go. So you need to have a name that you can go back to. If someone just says, "Oh, this is broken," and you're like, "What does that mean? What is broken to you?" You have to be able to have a person to go back to. But I also like the durability of the note system that we have set up. I know we're not talking about note system, but as far as employees are concerned, giving them a way to communicate clearly and to your point that they have a pretty high confidence that it will be read and that it will be resolved or at least discussed. I think that's a great way. And we have bilateral communications. People in the offices, admin, owner, managers can also communicate to front staff in a similar way. And it's what I call durable, right? It stays there either until it's resolved or till everybody can read it. In the past, consistently, one of the pieces of useful feedback that we had a difficult time resolving was communication. So you now do a newsletter, people know where they can find it. It's supposed to be read once a month. We have the sort of bidirectional chat communication. We've put communication at the forefront so that things stay in front of the employees, that there is a channel to reach out to whoever the problem solver is, the problem with the building, problem with an inventory count, problem with items or parts, whatever the problems are. So this has a lot to do with retention because we found in our case that bad communication was an absolute negative for the employees, and giving them a way to reliably and confidently communicate get responses and get things resolved. Really good retention point, and good for the business overall, because we were able to resolve the issues that were most important to employees or customer problems. Communication is the broad umbrella that falls under. And without a good system in place, I bet if you were to ask all of your employees about communication, many of them would say it's weak. So get better at it. And it's not just one off. I told you that. It's how do you put in a place that it's readable, durable, understandable, and bi-directional, that they can communicate with you as well.
Communication outside of sticky notes or I put a note on your desk is huge. I love having the note system we have, which we have just a form through Google Sheets, but that way I can reference how many times an employee's asked me to fix something and I'm like, oh, I gotta fix this. They clearly have it's affecting multiple employees or I need to make it a priority or something. So yeah, the nicest thing about being a small business owner is that you actually care who's in your building and part of caring is regularly checking in with people, recognizing when they do great things, and then when they are inconsistent or need correction, doing that in the right environment, in a private environment, and not bringing them down around the rest of the team. I think it's something it's very hard. You're like, everything's going great. These employees are doing great. They're meeting all my expectations, but you not letting them know that on a regular basis. It's a lot easier to catch the bad things than it is to catch the good things. So I have to regularly check in with myself and be like, hey, employee A has been doing just a great job greeting customers consistently. They've improved on this and this. I got to let them know. And I got to let them know in front of all my staff because it deserves to be recognized. And usually you get a crowd effect when you do recognize people publicly for good things of, hey, I want some of that. I want some of that attention. I want some of that recognition because I'm also doing it well. So it breeds a good environment of other employees working on whatever it is you need them to work on. But it doesn't have to be formal. It can literally just be like I do that employee newsletter. If we get like a good customer review or a good customer notifies me of some engagement they had, I put that in the newsletter, name that employee by name, just saying kudos. And that they are the reason that our customers come through our doors anyway. So they're our first impression of Braxton's essentially. Because if people just wanted pet products, they just go to Amazon and get them. Another huge thing is doing employee feedback when it's in a negative light in a private setting. You don't want to do those kind of employee group chats where it's like, hey, John, you got to pick it up, man. You're not doing XYZ. You're not getting your cleaning list done, whatever the case is, in front of a bunch of people. You need to have that conversation in private so that it can get corrected. They don't feel humiliated, debilitated. And it's easier when it's in private to be more factual, I feel, instead of feeling or opinionated because you can set yourself up to have that conversation more in depth. And next week, we're actually going to talk about what those conversations look like and how to have productive ones and not awkward ones.
It's funny. My parents had 8 children, and oftentimes we were all pretty decent, plus or minus a little bit. And people might say to my dad, like, "Oh, your children are very nice. Like, how did you raise all 8 children?" And tongue in cheek, he said, "Like dogs, right? You just reinforce them. If they need to be punished, you punish them. If you catch them doing something good, you praise them, you treat them." And a little tongue in cheek, but if you think of it the same way, as if you want a behavior to happen over and over again, you reinforce it. You make sure that you're giving the employee a reward that's appropriate for them. Mostly it's just verbal kudos. Thank you. I appreciate that. You did that well. And Tiff talked about doing it publicly. And to a greater degree, that's absolutely true. There are some people that don't like to be called out publicly. So, to Tiff's point about knowing your employees and really making sure that you're doing what's right for them, that might be a quiet pat on the back in the lunchroom. Hey, I just noticed you did this. I just want to let you know that I appreciate it. Social public reinforcement is good for those people that enjoy that, but remembering that not everyone enjoys that. Point being, what gets reinforced happens over and over again. We want to make sure that we're picking those times and recognizing those opportunities to tell our employees and staff when they're doing the right thing, when we appreciate their actions. Sure, hey, you showed up on time. That's great. That doesn't count. They should be showing up on time. But I really appreciate the way you handled that difficult situation with that customer. You did a great job. Thank you very much. And, you turned a bad situation into a good situation. We really appreciate that. It's just very important to do. And you're going to see those behaviors more often when you take the opportunity to call them out, to give them a thank you, show appreciation. really important to do.
Yeah, so I think if you're like me and you have a hard time remembering that I need to give my team kudos on a regular basis, like everything's going good, but I got to remember to give them the kudos. You could schedule a cadence with yourself of if you want to meet with people every quarter, every 6 months, every year, just to not necessarily have a performance review, but to check in with people like, how are things going at home? I've noticed some different things going on at work, or you seem really happy recently. Is everything going well? Just having a conversation human to human that's in a professional manner so that you stay on top of things that might be affecting them at work that you might not be picking up on. Asking them good qualifying questions. What are you enjoying right now about Braxton's? What are you enjoying about this place? What is frustrating you? Is there anything you need from me? Is there any way I could support you in some of your goal setting or anything you're working on? Just having that intimate conversation that furthers that relationship, but then also keeps you on top of that employee. And then I also have a goal for myself is once a week, I want to tell at least one employee that they're doing something really well. And that sounds like a very low bar. And I usually go over that, but I just want to make sure that I set it for myself. Be like, hey, I haven't told anybody they're doing great. I know there's somebody here that's always doing something great. So I just need to do it out loud. And just more of like a mental reminder, less of an actual goal, because that's a super low goal, but it just kind of keeps me on top of that.
Yeah, and this whole thing wraps around the idea that when things are going well, we can just kind of keep our heads down and pray that it keeps going well. And that's the wrong way to look at it, right? It's those times that are negative that pop up in our face and we get frustrated and we're like, oh, we got to take care of this. But when things are going well, that's actually the perfect opportunity to do what you're saying is to take a moment, set a calendar for yourself, do a quick review every Monday. Oh, who was here? How did everything go? Was it a good weekend? And then turn around and make sure that you reinforce that. So it's easy to forget when things are going smoothly. And what we can't forget, we have to use those opportunities.
Yeah, so stepping away from the employee connection and getting back to another benefit you can offer your employee. This suggestion to me is going to be like the most financially draining that you could possibly invest in invest in your employees' education, not necessarily their college education or anything, but a mutually beneficial education process. So last week, I think Dave made a great point of what if I invest in my employees? What if I train them and they leave and take those skills somewhere else? If you're in the grooming space and you train them how to be the expert groomers and they go off and be their own groomers, or if you just give them the customer service skills, they go to a higher paying customer service based industry, something like that. And Dave nailed it. It's like, what if they stay and they're not happy? They're not being trained properly, and our business doesn't benefit from them being there. So I think it's important to invest in them outside of their typical retail skills, outside of what they're looking for in life. So we have an employee that brought to our attention that a lot of our customers were asking about nail trimming and wanting us to do nail trimming because we had a self-service dog wash and our customers were either anxious about doing it or they weren't getting it done consistently. And she's I would be willing to learn how to properly do it, how to do it for your business. That she gained the skill, she's gaining a different level of customer service when it comes to taking care of people's pets. But our business is mutually benefiting because obviously we have another revenue stream of service that we offer. And she's absolutely killing it. She's getting us Google reviews and she's obviously got the revenue coming in and she's making money herself more than what she was. But she didn't suggest, hey, I just need to be paid more. She offered an avenue for basically how she could get more compensation, but also work for that as well. So we invested in her to go into a local groomer that we had a good relationship with and train her how to properly hold dogs, how to properly restrain dogs, how to read their body language, and then how to trim the nails specifically. To which we invested that in her, and now we get this kind of added revenue stream. It's been great. Another thing was an employee wanted to learn more about nutrition deeper than what manufacturers or what Braxton's was willing to teach, like on a molecular level, a scientific level. So we'd found a course that she could take that would prepare her to be a nutrition course, and you take it before you become a nutritionist. It's like a stepping guide, but she was able to take that. We paid for that for her, and we started off offering it as a service, but now it's just more of like we have a really star employee when it comes to very specific nutrition questions and everything, and she's very comfortable with answering those. But if we invested that in her, she could have clearly went and took that and made her own side hustle or went to another business and took that information with her. But I think since we took the time to pay for it, invest in her, and let her use those skills, we've retained a really good employee and mutually benefited both of our perspectives.
I think Different people are in different times of their life and different personalities. Some people, even good employees that just want to kind of come to work, enjoy their time at work, and go home at the end of the day, that's fine as long as they're ticking all the boxes and they're good and they're friendly and they're helpful. This is great. But sometimes it's the best employees that are curious and engaged and interested in new and different. And this is, Tiff, I think exactly where you're hitting these points is that then that becomes a really good retention tool that's also good for the business, good for the employee, good for the business. And you talked about maybe free training, in-house training, maybe reps doing training. If it's compelling, if it's interesting, these are also some resources that you should have that might be lower cost, very valuable. But I also think we do a good job in trying to create opportunities. Look, there's not a whole lot of level up here. Like how many levels are there? Clerk, you can do warehouse stuff, and then there's management, and then there's owners, right? So you're not going to become an owner. We have one manager for 15 employees. You're not going to become a manager. So what else is there? And we try to create these sort of internal teachings if they wanted to do. I want to learn how to do ordering. Okay, if it's interesting to you and you have the capability and it's something we need to offload or to have multiple people learn how to do so we don't have a single point of failure, you can possibly teach other aspects of your business that is good for the employee because they're interested, curious, engaged. We have employees who do social media posting. If as long as they're interested in learning about it and want to do it, it's good for us, it's good for them. So I think being creative in the way that we look at both, to your point, paid and structured, this is our investment because we want to take care of that employee and we want them to develop a valuable skill that should also benefit us. But if you get creative, there's other ways to keep them engaged as well.
Yeah, that marketing one is could be the scariest because I feel like if you could teach anybody how to bring somebody through the door or buy a product, there's infinite industries they can go into and work into. So if you teach somebody how to be a good marketer, how to build social media posts, it transcends the pet industry, that skill that they could take and easily go make some more money somewhere else. If I had an employee come to me and say they're interested in learning about I would immediately invest in them to learn about AI because there's so many different ways you can use that within any business. And I said, sometimes it's just we don't have enough time in the day to learn. But if they can learn something that benefits our business and gain that skill at the same time.
Yeah, a good way to maybe prompt that for yourself would be, what are the things you know you should be doing or believe you should be doing, but you just don't because you don't feel like you have the time? That might be an area to explore to see if you have an employee who's got an overlapping interest in that area. And either they can self learn and help you do it, or you can invest in their education, which is ideal because now there's a reciprocal connection. Yeah, okay, well, I'll buy this $300 course for you, or I'll let you spend a couple of hours of work time doing this for us, and then you'll learn it and you'll do it while you're here. So I think that's just a good prompt to keep in your head is what are those things that you really think you should be doing for marketing, for your business, for outreach, for AI, whatever it is. Find an employee who might be similarly interested and willing to spend the time. And then you, of course, put some investment into it.
Yeah, I think retention is not about keeping people comfortable necessarily, but it's about pushing people to be better versions of themselves and providing that environment for them to do that. Education and growth do that better than almost anything else. So, whatever they're interested in learning or the skills they're looking to gain, definitely invest in that. I think the final thing I want to talk about is exit interviews, which are just huge. Sometimes you've gotten to the point where people want to move on for whatever reason. They're looking to go back to school or looking for a job for a different reason. But if you don't take the time to try and figure out why they're leaving and what you possibly can improve in your story, you've wasted that feedback. At the point at which they give you 2 weeks notice, there's no reason for them not to be completely candid about what happened at the store. And things could be great, but they could have that feedback of, well, this process really was a pain in the butt every day. There's no reason for them to not say it at that point if it was something minuscule that you can easily fix. So I find that you get the most honesty in an exit interview with an employee that's leaving. And you can structure this as an interview. We have it as a little Google form. So it's like you're leaving. You can literally go no bars and just tell me exactly what you did and didn't like here. Get both sides of the story because you can lean into if the things that they did into your marketing and hiring the next person, and then you can fix the things they didn't like potentially, or at least be honest with the next employee of people don't like the way it smells in here and there's a pet store. There's nothing I can do about that. I'm so sorry. But you can be honest with the potential employees up front with those kind of pain points of things you can and can't fix.
Yeah, and I think we have to enter into an exit interview, especially if it's face to face, person to person, is go in open hearted and open minded. This is not the time to be defensive, because if they do bring something up that they think you should improve, something that they noticed that they didn't like, it's not the time to be defensive and say, oh, this is the way it's done because whatever. It's like open hearted, open minded, receive the information and truly evaluate it. You don't want to shut them down, because the whole point of the exit interview is to gather information.
Yeah, I think one of the most eye-opening exit interviews I ever did was they were just frustrated again with communication on my part of I would go to a show and buy some products and not necessarily debrief them on every single one or give them the information they did on every single one. And that was very difficult because when you bring in 20 different products or something like that, to know who you're talking to. So that's when the employee newsletter kind of began at Braxton's, is that I was able to go to these shows, buy things, do a quick blurb of whatever the selling point that was just fresh in my mind. And then if I get the training follow on afterwards, that'd been a bonus, but or at least give them dates for training. Sometimes it was just letting them know that training will be coming, but that newsletter has specific dates, what they're going to be kind of covering, quick little sales points to hit before they get here, anything like that. That was one of my I didn't realize it was something my staff was frustrated with me about because it was a nuanced little thing, but they're like, "Oh, there's a new product here, and I don't know anything about it." But I took for granted, I was like, "Oh, I know everything about it, and it's like a jerky treat. What's there to know? Maybe." But there's everybody does something specific. There's a specific reason we brought it in at Braxton's, and to not let my staff know that reason was a huge disadvantage, and that was on my part for sure. So if we put all this together into a simple retention audit, you can ask yourself, can you name one genuine non-wage perk that you offer that your competitors maybe cannot match? Do your employees have a visible path forward inside your store? Can they grow, whether it's with a rank or retail staff to warehouse, retail staff to nail trimmer, retail staff to team lead, or if they have specific goals or skills for themselves, can you offer those kind of education pieces? When was the last time you sat down with an employee and just checked in with them, seeing how things are going, good or bad? Are there any service gaps that your employees could fill that you're like, I'm then looking to pick up training within my business? And I have a couple employees that'd be interested in learning how to do dog training or something, or the AI question, which is going to be huge right now. And do I have an employee that's looking to learn AI in some capacity that could be beneficial to our business? Do I have an exit interview process, whether formal or informal? And if you are honest, does your store feel like a place people would be proud to work? Is huge. I want every employee to leave here and be like, yeah, I worked at Braxton's. It's been there for 88 years. And we have some employees that come back 30 years later saying they loved the experience they had. They loved whatever they got from the place. So retention doesn't have to be a program that you launch. It has to be a culture you build one decision at a time. You have to be respectful of your employees. You have to treat them fairly. The stores that keep their best people are not the ones that are paying the most in this industry. They're the ones that are making people feel the most valued, the most seen, and the most invested in. Yet next week, we're going to kind of wrap our employee conversation. We're going to be talking about how to have uncomfortable conversations when it comes to correcting employees, building them up when they are having performance issues, and when you can't overcome those performance issues, getting them out the door, sending them on their best way forward so that you can get the next person in that's going to be committed to doing what's best for your store.
When you have employees that last a long time that you can take care of, they're more likely to take care of you. I had said before, it's our most important job really is to take care of our best employees. Retention is a big part of it, understanding who they are, understanding what they are interested in, what they want out of the relationship with the store, with you personally, with your customers. And the better we understand that, the better of an environment we create for them to want to stick around. And again, when they stick around, they become smarter, they become more educated, they know your customers better. And it's really just a positive, uplifting spiral of in more engagement and more interest, more knowledge. So retention is absolutely an incredible thing to implement with intention into your business. It'll pay itself off tons in the long run.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much, Dave, for being here, and we will see you guys next week.